Okay, so Manoj, I'm going to start today before we go into podcast mode, just grounding. And so feel free to even close your eyes if you wish. Find that opportunity to sit down, root into this beautiful Mother Earth, root into the energy and the power of all of your guides and angels. And I'm going to start this off with just saying how grateful we are to be alive here today, seeking the truth that reveals itself through the eyes of this beautiful beholder, Dr. Manoj Chalam, so that we can come together to express love and service and compassion in action. We feel everyone has something special to share in this world, and we are so grateful for Manoj to be with us here today to share his story and the sparks that inspired his actions in creating ripple effects, actualizing love in this world. Let us be inspired by his story and light in us a lantern for a cause that matters deeply to us and to our world. Today, we value progress over perfection, and we know that we are guided and protected on this journey of service and love with our human family. And for the sake of our precious short lives, may we be leaders who care. May we be leaders who act mindfully for the greater good of generations to come. And may we listen intently without the need to fill space with sound and seek to understand rather than postulate how to interject. We value living from our hearts and allowing the ripple effect of goodness, inspiration, hope, and courage to flow from our words into the positive actions supporting our families, communities, and this world we've been gifted to occupy. So welcome, Manoj, and thank you for being here. Is there any additional grounding invocation that you would like to do?
I also want to invoke Ganesh, the yogic deity for grounding. He resides in our root chakra, the Muladhara, that connects us to the earth. And he's for new beginnings. We're always beginning new in the hero's journey. Very similar to the Roman archetype, Janus, with two faces. Janus is shown. One face is the past, another is the future. We remember the past, but we don't dwell on it. We always grow. And it's like a spiral, a Fibonacci or a golden spiral in the hero's journey. It's not circular. We always keep growing. And the mantra to Ganesh to embark on this journey is Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Jai Ganesh.
Jai Ganesh.
Welcome. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. You know, Manoj, I was reflecting back. So our very first podcast was launched by you and your sweet, lovely wife, Jyothi. And that was purposeful. It was purposeful that we were going to begin this ability to have the conversations around positive ripple effects with two of the individuals that have had such a huge impact on me and others in this world. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that from our beginning, which was how do we dance between the raindrops, right? The karmic raindrops. And so much has even happened in your own life, and we'll touch upon that. But what I wanted to first of all do is introduce you to our listeners for those who may not know Dr. Manoj Chalam. Manoj, oftentimes people call him the spiritual stand-up comedian because what he does is he uses a uniquely entertaining, interactive storytelling style using Hindu, Buddhist, and Buddhist deities in his workshops to eliminate bhakti practices, as well as deep non-dual philosophy. He teaches at yoga festivals, events, and he has an ashram for whoever wants to listen. Manoj uses these deity archetypes to help people in their own hero's journey, as was elucidated by Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung. He's an Indian-born scientist with a PhD in chemical engineering from Cornell University, and Manoj helps individuals finding their own way, teaching the 5 practices to work with their archetype as a spiritual practice. He's also compiled a book about the symbolisms of these deity archetypes. So Manoj, we're so excited for you to be here today. I know that you are a teacher. You've been doing many things, even from your own home, which is now the ashram with which you teach. So I'm really curious, as I'm sure our listeners are too. You talked about the hero's journey in our introduction. Tell us a little bit about where you feel you are on your own hero's journey.
Wow. I like, first of all, it's best to use more I statements and make it personalized, right?
Mhm.
Like, Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita did not tell Krishna, data shows that 90% of people have shadows or fucked up. It's a, I don't think Sanskrit has swear words, but is that okay to use? This is a
This is, we're not going to bleep you, but it is something that is oriented to all people to access. So let's just give everyone a heads up. We might have a couple of little swear words from time to time. It's all part of it.
yeah. That's
All words are open and not,
uh,
be honest.
I went cousin playing pickleball, which is interesting. But I think I can get away when I'm old, fat, brown with an accent. You can get away with a lot of shit, right? Um, so the hero's journey is applicable to everyone. Uh, where I am is more in the collective phase.
Mhm.
So it's not just about me, it's about anyone I engage with.
Mm.
And, in Sanskrit, the word for world is jagat, but it's the world we encounter or engage with.
Mhm.
So when you wake up in the morning, you reboot your body, mind, but you reboot the world. The world doesn't exist unless there's a conscious observer. It's like a tree falls in the forest, right? So anyone I meet in my life, be it at the grocery store or playing pickleball or when I teach, I try to elevate them. Like you elevate me, I elevate you, Christina. So the hero journey to me is become more a collective one. So in the beginning, we had the Western model, right? Descartes, I think, therefore I am.
Mhm.
But it really doesn't jive with the spiritual teachings of, Vedanta, which, like what happens when you stop thinking, when you don't have thoughts, doesn't mean you don't exist. That's silly, right?
Right.
So Vedanta would say, I am, therefore I think. So the consciousness is the foundation of everything.
Mm.
But then Desmond Tutu, who I know you get inspired with,
Yes.
he would say, we are, therefore I am.
Mhm.
So I'm in that phase of the hero journey where the individual and the collective, it's not less about me now. It's more about people.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And was there a catalyst in some way that brought you to this place? Maybe you can give us a few, maybe markers in your own hero's journey, because I don't know if everyone is born into this collective spirit. Maybe we have to go through the initial I am, which might feel a little more egoic, and then we get to where you are. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey?
Yeah, great question. So like you, I know you have a master's in engineering and even a Six Sigma. I remember we talked about
That's
that.
right,
So,
Master Black Belt, baby.
and I didn't rise up to that level. I was a green belt when I was at GE. I think you were at GE
I
too.
was at GE early days. Yeah, I was telling my son the other day, I interned at NASA first, and he said, Mom, why aren't you at NASA anymore? That's such a great job. And I said, well, it was working for the government. And for me, I realized early that I needed more deadlines. And then I went to GE and I got the deadlines that I was looking for. Yeah, that was when Jack Welch, right? You had to be number one or number two, or you were out.
And Jack was a PhD chemical engineer. So at GE was like shape up or shift out or ship out
Exactly.
was a revolving door. But I was like very much in that mindset, which was more Descartes. I think, therefore I am, very left brain, ego,
Mhm.
thinking I'm in charge. And that's fairly typical for most people in the hero's journey. In the first quadrant, you go through life. We're almost being conditioned, like NASA is a cool job or G is a cool job.
Mhm.
And we get all these signs that things are not quite what they seem.
Mhm.
And with me, it was, not feeling happy anytime. Even after I accomplish something, I would feel happy for like 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and there's a next new thing. So we get on a roller coaster. Okay. And so you need like untoward events in your life to shake things up, right? Like a
Yes.
what I call a Kali moment. So smooth waters never makes a skillful sailor. So when I look back, I've had so many such untoward incidents, and that really what started me on the spiritual path about 22 years ago.
Mm.
Where in psychology it's called learned helplessness. Whatever I tried, didn't work. Even if it worked, it didn't give me lasting joy. So you keep getting whacked by life.
Mhm.
And because I was operating from ego, strong ego, it's all about me. And my zenith was I became a CEO of a tech company, and I got fired by my angel who gives me $1 million,
Mhm.
So all that self-esteem I had built up like a sandcastle got washed away by Kali, the ocean, for a good reason. Okay,
Yes.
so that was one seminal moment where I got into the spiritual journey, and I started as a business. I would import all these statues. You see some of them behind me,
Yeah. The deity archetypes, the
the deity
mercies.
archetypes. So I started purely as a business. Actually, my wife Jyothi had started, and soon the spirituality just sucked me in, you know. And then I met you and other good people, and I actually learned from my customers. And I got influenced by Deepak Chopra. I started to teach at his retreats. That was like 20 years ago.
Mhm.
But I always felt he was hitting the, I'm grateful he got me on the journey with the archetypes, but he was more with the celebrities, the rich folks, because, that's who they could afford attending his retreats. He would charge like 10 grand for a few days.
Yeah.
So his nickname was Deep Pockets Chopra. Yeah. But I felt more with the people, like an average person I would connect with. So I started to do workshops on my own, totally indebted to Jyothi, my wife, who got held my hand through my whole hero's journey.
Yeah.
She's always been spiritual. So slowly I evolved into spreading the light, spreading the dharma. None of these teachings are mine. These are coming from the scriptures. So I can't claim ownership. There's no
Right.
patent on the Vedic teachings. It's like patenting gravity. But then another shift happened to more a collective one when Jyothi passed a year and a half ago from cancer. Uh, Very unexpected, but then the whole from diagnosis to passing away, she hung in there for 1.5 years with grace,
Yeah.
even when she passed. Before that, we had a big you know thing at home.
Mhm.
A lot of people came, and then a big Zoom call. So that was 35 years of my marriage.
Yeah.
And that was another seminal moment to me, where now I'm alone in this house, and I came to the realization that it's more a collective journey. It's
Mhm.
less about me. Um, so I've opened my house. I literally moved my ashram home. And you've been to my temple earlier, Christina,
Yes, I have.
where we used to do retreats, and I used to get 40, 50 people from all over the country. But I moved everything home 2 weeks ago.
Mm.
And I had my first event last Saturday on the hero's journey.
Nice.
And that was a sacred spiritual stress test to see how many people I can fit in. And we
What
had
was the
like
count?
36.
36. That's
Yeah.
lovely.
Look, I don't charge for teachings, but what I'm grateful is people give me the attention span.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
in
the
the
most sacred resource of all, right?
in
Time and
this
attention.
in this days of shrinking attention span, deep attention is a real currency. So you got to give back somewhere. So I'm the art, selling the statues is a business, but the teachings is seva. So you got to give some back somewhere to the
That's right.
community. So I'm even more determined to do more events at home. Another big change is doing a pilgrimage to India,
Mm,
because that's a natural outcome of these deity archetypes.
yes.
Because the hero's journey is all these deities, but going to India on a pilgrimage blows it out of the water, because every deity and pilgrimage spot can be a hologram of totality.
Hmm.
So you never know which one can hit you, you
Yeah.
know. So that's where I am right now in my life. It's a spiral, it's a what I call a Fibonacci golden spiral, where you're always expanding, you know.
Yes. Yes.
You don't go
Always
back to where you
expanding.
started.
Yeah. It's interesting. There was a quote that I had heard a time ago, and it was like, if you don't grow, you go. And so this whole notion about in life, right? We are on the journey, and the journey, the quest, if you will, the seeking is to learn and to grow and to be the best version of ourselves for the greater good of this world. I believe anyway, it's what my teachings and my teachers have taught. And I almost wonder, I say this with love. Jyothi, left this world, this particular material world, and I think that her growth is happening from a different angle now. And I don't know, I feel her in different ways. And so I know that she's with us here today in the spirit that she is. But how do you feel her in your life as you are going continually on this collective journey now?
Yeah. So the part I really miss about her is I watched her hero's journey from a simple woman who hardly spoke English,
Mm,
uh, grew up in Kerala, and that was 35 years ago, to this amazing spiritual teacher with like impeccable Queen's English,
mhm.
unlike me who cusses every time.
She was the proper lady, wasn't she?
She was totally proper. She would have that high tea in the afternoon, a tea in the morning, very dharmic. She would do the right thing always.
Yes.
So that's the part I miss the most, as I think less of the earlier parts of our marriage, more on when we would teach together, or I would just be in awe listening to her.
Yes.
Um, the so those feelings come. You can't help. They just come, and I allow them to encapsulate me, and then it passes.
Yeah.
Um, but we got to, as Janus is two faces, you got to look forward. Okay.
Yes.
So Jyothi is with us as Atma. She is
Mm,
consciousness. And she would, if she were here, she would be smiling. But Atma is always a force for the good. The word Shiva means the auspicious nature of consciousness.
mhm.
So that's who she is. She's the auspicious nature of consciousness, especially.
Yeah.
So she would totally approve of where you're going, Christina.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel so, so blessed. I think it's interesting too, even though this show will air at a later date in April, today, March 8th, is International Women's Day. And
Yes.
I find that is, we can talk about coincidence or synchronicity of that, but I also know, aside from having an amazing, amazing woman next to your side with Jyothi, you also have an incredible daughter, Janita. And I'm wondering how much of your journey, in terms of how that feels now, being kind of this not solo parent, but you're the one here in this world. How is that going with you and Janita?
Yeah. So that's the legacy of
Yeah.
Jyothi. Janita is a great singer like Jyothi. She's been singing since the age of 4. And she's also a philosopher,
Mm,
at heart. And she's very grounded, exactly like Jyothi. So Janita is very good for me. I rely on her for a lot of stuff. She's like almost like my consigliera, you know, using a mafioso term. Uh, and she runs stuff by me because I've had experience in the business world.
mhm.
both business and personal. And she lives in your neck of the woods, San Francisco. Um, so it's lovely to see her blossom, and she's on her own journey. I give her a lot of space.
Yes.
She came with me to India on the pilgrimage, extremely helpful.
Mm,
Kind of like you, Christina. She's very organized with big heart, both.
yeah, I
You
love
know.
that. Tell us a little bit more. You know, you and I had a little conversation in our intake call around what I do in coaching circles around the real, REAL, heroic journey, which breaks things into 4 steps. And then what you've talked about into the hero's journey with Hindu and Buddhist archetypes. And I'm going to bring this up on the screen. And I know for our listeners, you can't see it, but this will help Manoj as you walk through this potentially. And then I will put this out on our online resource hub as our
Yes,
gift from this show, if that's okay with you.
absolutely.
Yeah. Can you
So,
walk us through this a little bit? Like, how do you tell us a little bit more about what this says?
yeah, first of all, this, is for everyone. There's no proprietary nature to it. This was collective wisdom, an outcome of a workshop we did. So when you look at the right, the first quadrant on the right, on the top is what I call the Kali moment, where we're conditioned in life to want the house, the 2-car garage, the dog, the pickup, the relationship, and nobody ever rides into the sunset happy forever. So we get a what I call a Kali moment, or moments, right? Many
Mhm.
many Kali moments, or a major one where your life gets thrown apart. You make all these plans, and God laughs, right? And so that's when you have a choice. You get all these calls to adventure. You have all these synchronicities and signs. uh, Many times we ignore them, and even now most people ignore them, and they numb themselves out through sports or bars, or not really looking within,
Yeah.
as to who are they, who am I, what is this world, what's my role in this world, and what is God. Okay, these are
Mhm.
4 perennial questions in philosophy. And but some of us cross a threshold into taking a dive into the unconscious, what I call kayaking the unconscious. And really, for that, you need perhaps a wise person, like a mentor.
Mhm.
Ganesh is an amazing threshold guardian for new beginnings, the deity, the elephant deity. The other one in today's times, that was an outcome of my workshop I had a few weeks ago. The young people, a lot of them are getting into the spiritual journey because of an experience with plant medicine,
Mm.
be it microdosing of LSD or mushrooms or even ayahuasca. So they see the potential as to what's there. So, and then we get into the second quadrant where Buddha is inspiring, right? The guy walked away. He was a Hindu prince. He walked away and realized the self. Durga is a good one, the Hindu deity. She rides on a lion or a tiger. But that's really what it represents, is working on a shadow. Okay, the
Mhm.
shadow is a big one. We don't look in the mirror every day and say, I'm going to do the same stupid thing. But guess what? By the end of the day, you end up doing the same stupid thing. Why is that? The shadows control us. They control our behavior. Now you can have positive and negative shadows, both. Okay,
Mhm.
not every shadow is negative. So the spiritual journey is a positive shadow. Kirtan is a positive shadow. And then it's not really sequential. It sounds sequential, but it's a bell curve. Every quadrant bleeds into the other.
Mhm.
And then you go through a turning point where you're kind of you start to feel the possibilities. like you're going from dopamine to serotonin, right? Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that gives you the joy. Uh, like I get a lot of dopamine when I play pickleball, but serotonin is a group neurotransmitter. You start to enjoy like being in a group, helping people, let them help you. It's a hugging hormone, right? The love, bhav hormone. So that's the third quadrant where you start to emerge from the mud. You see the possibilities. Hanuman is a very good one for service. And then a Lakshmi is an amazing one for emerging from the mud, blossoming, also perhaps building community. You know, you start to, if you choose to, you want to have a community, and the Lakshmi energy is actually the one of abundance to build a community where your people are so drawn to you. Your community becomes your family. And then perhaps a relationship, that's Krishna, Radha. You want a mate who's spiritually compatible, but it can also be a friend. You know, it can be even a sibling. It can be son, daughter, not always a romantic relationship. That's actually the biggest challenge I find in America. The relationship archetype, even people who are well in the spiritual journey, it's extremely difficult to find a compatible relationship that lasts. I see that as a huge issue, and we can talk about that if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But in the fourth quadrant, it's like the Plato's cave allegory, where the hero or the heroine goes back to serve, and a realization can happen there that there is no you. It's only consciousness that is reflecting in each one of us. It's like Indra's net. In Hinduism, the Vedas, there's a concept called Indra's net, where each one of us is like nodes of consciousness, and we reflect each other, like drops in a spider web. So we're all connected in a spider web. We reflect each other. And in the fourth quadrant, the hero's journey, it could be Saraswati, Vishnu, Krishna. It could be Lord Jesus Christ. It could be Green Tara, where there's a tendency to serve and realize it's not about you. There's no hero in the hero's journey. So it's a very beautiful journey, and it never ends, because you don't end where you start. It's a spiral. You always keep growing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for walking us through that. The key question that comes to mind is when you talked about the threshold, when you brought up Ganesh, one of the things that you said earlier in the podcast is, rough waters are what kind of help make a skilled sailor. So in the partnership that we might have with a wise sage, or with an ability for somebody to help show us the light or show us the way, is that what you see as what happens as we move from conscious to unconscious? Could you say a little more about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's different, kinds of sages. I especially like the Japanese definition of sensei, somebody who has walked the path before. So it's not like theoretical, it's experiential, right? You have had those experiences. I personally resonate with a sage who's a friend. The friend archetype is called Sakhya Bhava, Sakhya, and Bhava. So that's who like Krishna was. He was like a friend to Arjuna. He was the charioteer to, like the original Uber driver.
That's
and
right.
So that's really my approach. Is I'm more friends with everyone.
Yes.
I think, and also humor, again, my opinion, it breaks down barriers, because if you download any philosophy, there's resistance if you're not in that mode of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But if you employ humor, it can put you on a metacognitive state where
Yes.
meta stepping back, right? So you're you're able to be in a better position of embracing the teachings.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of anxiety in the world right now, what I call free floating anxiety. Even before COVID, but COVID has put it on steroids. And you know Chat GPT will never replace us because it really doesn't have empathy. Okay, you got to connect with people heart to heart, eye to eye. So the wise sage, there are uh, tools the sage can use
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get the message across.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the tools, my opinion, should be humor.
I love that. You actually do such a wonderful job of, I would say, walking that line where humor is opening the door, and that I think then assists, like you said, the metacognition. Like there's a relatability that happens, and then the accessibility of the lessons and the teachings just seems to be that much more. I don't know. There's a readiness. Maybe that's what happens. There's almost like a permission that's granted when you open that door. It's pretty remarkable. And I can
Yeah.
see why humor, I had mentioned to a friend recently, I think comedians are going to lead us into this age of awakening and enlightenment. I'm just seeing it across the board. Look at the Netflix specials and some of the most popular, right? Whether or not it's Chris Rock or Joe Coy or what have you, Chelsea Handler, there's so many good people that are out there kind of looking at where we are in this world and questioning, is this really what we want to be? I think it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. The court jester never gets shot during a change in king.
Yes.
There's always but I'm talking about like more humor with a spiritual message, right?
Yeah.
So in Vedanta or non-dual philosophy, we often talk about witnessing consciousness, like taking on the role of a witness and not getting enmeshed into the anxiety, the other person's anxiety, or saying something inappropriate, right? Because everyone's getting triggered and canceled these days. I can't get canceled because I'm not on social media. What to do?
What
Yeah,
to do?
yeah. I've never done that. So humor is pretty powerful. I'll give you a quick anecdote if you have the time.
Please, let's do.
I just for people to remember this, because the teaching is when something gets overwhelming, somebody cuts you off or says something inappropriate, or the boss is rude to you at work. If you tell yourself a simple phrase, isn't this interesting? It puts you in a metacognitive. It's like, you become more the observer. So I was teaching many years ago in a workshop in Vermont, in this really fancy resort called Manchester, the town, Green Mountains. And right next to the yoga studio where I was teaching, there's a fancy hotel, Equinox, and like $500 a night, So I'm wearing my hippie t-shirt and gazing outside the hotel during a break as to why is it so damn expensive, $500 a night.
Right.
And a guy pulls up in a limousine, a guy in a well-dressed suit. He looks at me and he says, "Jose, carry my bags." So immediately the thoughts keep going in, right? The dude is mistaking me for, a Mexican, a bellhop, and a Mexican guy. And I could go down the rabbit hole of cultural misappropriation. But I just told myself, isn't this interesting? Okay. And it's like a spiritual improv. You want to like carry on, right? So I did carry his bags and he gave me $100.
So who's laughing now, right?
Laugh. So did I get triggered? No. Did I really want to teach him a lesson? No. He probably made an honest mistake, something inappropriate, but that's his world, it's his worldview. There's too much of that going on. what I call, that's old new rabbit hole, postmodernism, nihilism. I'm more into the 60s, the Woodstock, the Jung, the collective unconscious, the love. So we're trying to bring the hippie back,
Yeah, the
without too
love
much
and the
acid.
love, it's important. I'm wondering if though there is a balance of, if we don't say something when we see something, then oftentimes there's a little bit of acknowledgement that the same patterns can continue. And so what is that balance between, I think what you mentioned was you consciously made an action to not be triggered and to carry the bags. You could have consciously also made a different action. So what are your thoughts about our internal work? It really is the more of the emotional regulation and then conscious choice about what we do going forward. Or what are
Right.
your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, do we really want to change people if they're not open to it? Okay.
Mhm.
That's one, my thought. The second is, we all have, we're not a melting pot. Okay. We're a salad bowl. Some of us are broccoli. That's okay. Uh,
Some of us are kale, some of us are
yeah,
carrots, right? It's all good.
it's all good. But deep underneath is the one consciousness.
Mhm.
So if you operate from the dual perspective that the broccoli, kale, carrots are acting out their conditioning, okay.
Mhm.
Everyone, the conditionings, the subconscious is like 90% of the mind, and we're operating from the 90% largely. So we're like moist robots. So a certain, some kind of a compassion can come in.
Yeah.
Is it really anybody's fault? Okay. Um, at the same time, you want to draw boundaries. So I just carried his bags. I got the $100. I'm a capitalist guy, and I left. I did not linger with him, trying to have a conversation. Then he'll go
Right.
back and forth.
Yeah.
Who knows how he'll react, right? He might apologize, or he might say, you look like a bellhop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? But did I want to engage in that? No, I wouldn't use the word I walk away, but I've learned over the years to draw boundaries.
Yeah.
That's more important than walking away to me.
Boundaries important, and knowing who you care to spend your time and energy with, knowing who feels like toxic energy and who maybe feels like they lift you and are with you, and also realizing we're all learning and growing as well, right? That
So you
conditioning is so powerful.
you raise a really good point, Christina, and I'm going to give you my viewpoint, and I'm going to ask you that same question. So sometimes you do encounter people who are what I call energy vampires, right? So
Mhm.
you just know, right? Anyone who doesn't elevate your energy, right?
Mhm.
You and I, we elevate each other's energy, and that's so I love about you. You're so
100%.
uplifting and positive. You might feel down, but you elevate me, and vice versa. So my approach has been not to like sever the relationship, but to kind of draw boundaries.
Mhm.
I could learn to perhaps sever, but that's not who I am. I'm 61. It's a little harder to do that when my whole life I've been that way. But I prefer to hang out with people where there's an energy of increase, right?
Mhm.
There's has to be an energy of increase. So I want to throw it back, right it back at you. How would you deal with such people like
I
yourself?
also agree, boundaries are really important. I also, and maybe this is our full circle moment back to International Women's Day, there's something inside of me, and I don't know if this is a nurturing quality that brings the quote from Maya Angelou is what comes back to me. When we know better, we do better. So if I'm able to work on myself and educate myself and be really curious and interested and inclusive, then maybe I will do something different. I will go out on a limb. I might do something that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery because it may be sticking my neck out. But if I feel it's for the greater good, then that is, I think, where those boundaries sometimes are very permeable, and it needs to have conscious thought in terms of what we're able to do when we move forward.
I think that's a great insight. And I think it's case to case.
Yeah.
And, to honor Women's Day, it's the odds are higher, the barriers are higher. Like, even like, if a 400-pound guy sits right next to me, there's a little intimidation just from the size. There's a patriarchy throughout history. So the barriers are higher. And I learned it more hanging out with Janita.
Mhm.
Women have to perhaps have a lower tone pitch in meetings. Um, and all that is disappearing, but it's still there. So I can learn a lot. We can all learn a lot from Shakti.
Yeah, we can all learn a lot from one another. Like you said, the whole skilled sailor, and then the whole thought that a rising tide lifts all ships. Like if we
Yes,
just really come back to that, that's what we're all here to do, to learn and grow together.
absolutely. And we're like, these little islands. I know you have your island, I have my island, and whoever we influence in our world, that increases,
Yes,
so we're
it
all doing
does.
our part.
Yeah. So as we draw a close to the podcast, what I want to first of all ask is, how can our listeners know more about what you're doing? We'll certainly put things in the show notes, but what are you up to and how can we best support you?
Thank you. So I do a lot of workshops and retreats. Now I moved my ashram home. You are all invited. I've never had a website nor social media all these years. Last year, my partner Kurt made a website so we could put our workshops and India pilgrimage information. So the website is in the show notes. If I say it, you're not going to remember it. It's a long word, murtisandvedantam.com. Probably the best way for anyone to connect with me and find out what I'm doing is send me an email. And my email is mikechalam@yahoo.com, or you can go to the website and there's a contact me section. What I will do is I will send you a long document on all the deities, the symbols, the mantras, how they appear in your hero's journey. And when I send that email, Kurt will include you in the email list of our next event. Our emails go out infrequently, not like every day, probably every month or every other month. So you will know. And the pilgrimage, that is on the cards. I'm leading a trip to India in November,
Mhm.
and that's a BFD. Yeah, BFD is a Biden mantra. Yeah. So you will get information on that. A lot of people have, I did one last year. Last December, I had like 33 people come, and some of the experiences, it's like collective healing,
Mhm.
where when one person heals in the group, the entire person heals. Okay, that's what is
Mhm.
called in Sanskrit mudita, or the German word Freud, where you take joy in other people's joy,
Mhm.
as opposed to Schadenfreude, which is the other way around. So that's a big part of the collective hero's journey. So that's the best way to reach me.
Okay, that's wonderful. It brings up, I was listening to Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights recently, and there was a quote in there. He said, "Travel and humanity have been my greatest educators." And I look at that and I find that that is the greatest truth. Like, as we get out of our environment, out of our comfort zone, especially if we're on a pilgrimage of sorts, there's so much beauty that just comes in, and it's so unplanned. It's phenomenal. And
I
to be
love
there in
that.
a group.
Um, there's a tendency to overplan living here, but when you go to India, it forces you not to plan too
That's
much.
right.
Yeah.
I find that going to Central America and like with some of these places, Africa, like you name it, it's like, yeah, you thought you had a plan. We got something else for you. There's the cosmic joke, right? Well, I'm going
Absolutely.
to end it with some collective questions. As you may recall, this is what we do on each of our podcasts, just quick lightning fire kind of mode. And I'm just curious right now, what, Manoj, are you currently reading or watching?
Chat GPT, AI influence on society.
Awesome. Are you doing so from the founder of ChatGPT? Are you listening to things from him, or are you reading certain books?
Uh, More different applications of Chat GPT.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. When you think about if you had an opportunity to have dinner and engage in dialogue with anyone past or present, who would it be?
That would be Jyothi.
Yeah. What would you have for dinner?
We would have like a South Indian meal. She would make a great dosa,
Yeah.
chutney, and sambar. And she loved tomato, so her favorite chutney was tomato.
Oh, I love that. Next time we see each other, we'll go have some dosa together. Yeah.
Yeah,
In honor of Jyothi.
yes.
Um, what do you find are the practices that you do or say to yourself when challenges arise, when shadow comes up and you are finding yourself in that human form? What inspires you?
I talk to people who are positive.
Mm.
That includes Janita. You know, she's my wise person in the hero's journey. The hero's journey can be every day. It doesn't have to be a momentous lifetime. So, when I talk to someone wise, it pulls me out of that challenge.
Yeah, awesome. Final question. What are you most grateful for today?
I'm grateful that we're actually living in California. Okay.
Mm,
It's a beautiful state. I know there's some knocks against it, but there's an optimism I sense everywhere I go that can never be taken away.
yeah, I love that. And for those that aren't aware, when you talked about your ashram, it's in San Diego. So for those that want to make the journey US wise to San Diego, that's where we can find.
I would love to see you.
That's
Yes.
great.
I would love to see you too, Christina.
I know I want to get back down there. One of these days we will make it happen. Or when you're coming up here to see Janita, let's make a point of it.
Absolutely. Your aunt still lives there here, right?
Yes, yes. So, oh, thank you. Thank you, Manoj. Grateful for you, grateful for your energy, grateful for where you are in your journey, coming back to the collective to see how much power there is in the we over the I. Thank you.
Absolutely. And you know what? It felt like a few minutes conversation. That's how much fun we had.
Yes.